Hello there, my name is Andy Harvey. If you're joining me in this presentation from the other presentation I have, thank you so much for wanting to watch another video. This one's going to be a little bit longer, and if you haven't watched the other one and you're just joining in this one, welcome. I am a senior at West Virginia University College of Creative Arts. I'll be graduating in May with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Graphic Design. I grew up in FFA and 4-H and am honored to be doing a couple presentations for you all. So this presentation is, like I said, it's going to be a little bit longer, but it's about working with a designer to create a logo for your business. Now, it doesn't just have to be working with a designer. If you just want to kind of get an idea of how to go about creating your own logo in a step-by-step process, this is what you're taught in design school. So hopefully these can help you with your process as well. So there are 5 things you need to ask yourself about your logo. When you're designing a logo, you're ultimately solving a problem. So you're trying to convey something that needs to be simple so it can get across the core tenets of what the organization or business does. So the 5 points that you should ask yourself is there enough simplicity? Is the design simple and clean enough to be flexible and easily recognizable? Is it not too busy or distracting? Memorability. Is it quickly recognizable? Will people only have to spend a second or two thinking about it to get it? Timelessness. Will it still be a great logo in 10, 20, or even 50 years? Versatility. Does it scale to different sizes without losing quality? Will it work across various media and within different contexts? And appropriateness. Does it resonate with the desired audience? So these 5 points, if you keep them in mind, they can help prevent you from getting too carried away with the creation of your logo. So the next thing we're going to kind of touch on now that we've asked ourselves the 5 things is the logo design process. So this is kind of just the point of view of a designer. This is the process that I personally go through whenever I'm working with a client. And it's something that you can, if you're creating your own logo, like I said, you can follow this process and it should help you 100%. So the first thing that I like to do is research the industry or the field. So researching the industry or field helps designers get a sense of environment that the logo is going to live in. The appropriate look and feel of a real estate logo, for example, is definitely going to be different than those of a restaurant or a band logo. So how different the logos will be from others depends on the context. In some cases, logos shouldn't be radically different because you don't want to put people off. So for example, in the health services industry, customers are looking for a level of comfort. But in the concert industry, you might want to go with something that's more innovative and crazy because there are different genres that are going to be there, and it varies widely from field to field. So different logos for different subjects are going to either be crazier or more simplistic, depending on what you're going for and what you want to resonate from your logo. So the next thing that I do is I get to know the client after researching. So once I have a solid objective and understanding of the field or industry, I like to understand what the client does and who their audience is. So I actually have 2 parts to this step: what they do and what they think about themselves, and then of course who they sell to. So then there's a translation process. So if your client is a construction company but they talk about how they're family based, the challenge is translating that idea into something concrete. How do I as a designer capture this construction company that's family based in a logo? When this part of the process is done right, it involves a lot of conversation, asking questions, and pushing the client to articulate and deeply explain their value proposition. So that's why I think that it is better to work with a designer, because they can ask you questions that you don't know how to ask yourself when you're creating your own logo. So a lot of times when you're a new company, business, or farm, and you're working with a designer, these discussions actually become very eye-opening because you really find what you value as a business. So after I've got to know the client, what I do is I like to sketch and present and iterate on my initial designs. So just a little tip for if you are working with a designer, and even if you're working by yourself, you should really try to keep your sketches in between 2 to 4 possibilities. Any more than that, you're going to find yourself doing a lot of revisions on all of the ideas. And that's going to set you up with a lot more work in the sense of trying to find something that you like. And if you're working with a designer, it's going to set you up for a much higher bill. Designers actually charge by how much work they're doing. That's how they determine what the cost to you is going to be. So by sticking to 2 to 3 to 4 mock-ups and possibilities, it's saving you money in the long run when you're working with a designer. So after I've shown you guys your sketches and the initial stuff, what I do is I take it back and I revise. I take everything that you like and don't like, and maybe what you wish was there, and I like to revise it into some more detailed sketches. So usually this step is little tweaks. Other times it's a series of longer revisions. This usually takes about a week, and then I organize the final deliverable. So once the logo is finished, I sort it out with my client what format and other iterations that they need the logo to live on. I like to set up kind of a view all type of thing. And this is actually a client that I worked with 2 years ago, the Women's Business Center. So I like to put it on shirts, hats, buttons, the logo by itself, size inverted to black and white, business cards, and envelopes. So this is something that if you're doing it yourself, you should try to do as well. That way you get an idea of what it's going to look like on something and what it's going to live on. And then also you need to make sure that you're saving the logo in the formats that you need it. There are different formats for different things. So just like CMYK is for print and RGB is for if you're showing your logo on the internet, that's the color variation. So there's different formats that they have to be on, that they have to be in order to be presented in certain ways. So designing a logo from scratch is a difficult creative process, and it takes a lot of research, a lot of knowledge of a business and its audience, and a deep consideration for the principles of logo design. But if you partner with the right designer and have a solid process in place, you should end up with something your company loves and something that people can also understand. So I do recommend selecting a designer to work with you. That way you get the most out of your logo. So I do have 4 things that you should look at for choosing the right designer. So you should always ask to see work samples when reviewing the designer's portfolio of work. Note the degree of harmony with his or her work. So you always want to view their portfolio. If a designer doesn't have a portfolio, then this means that they have nothing that they're proud to show people in order to get them to hire. And actually that's part of our process when we get hired with a firm. The only way a firm is going to hire us, or a company is going to hire us in their graphic design department, is that they view our portfolio. So it's definitely an important thing to look at. So another thing that kind of tells what type of designer they are is if you request a list of affiliations, you should choose a designer that follows the rules. So one of the biggest affiliations that you should see if they're a part of is the AIGA, which is the American Institute of Graphic Arts. You do have to pay a yearly fee to be a part of it, but I think that by having a designer that pays that yearly fee, it shows that they're very serious about their work. So you should definitely look at the professional affiliations that they have. And then you also want a designer that takes a little bit of a risk. That way you get that difference from other companies and organizations that sell and do the same thing as you. And then you should read the graphic designer's contract. So sometimes graphic designers have contracts of an agreement depending on what they're doing for you. I don't really have a contract. I have sort of a thing that we do where I ask you to create a Pinterest account and kind of Pinterest logos that you like, then you kind of see yourself having with your company. But other designers like to have contracts written out, and you should always make sure to read the contract. That way you know that you're not getting any extra charges, there aren't any hidden fees. So that's all I have for you about the design process. Thank you guys so much. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of insight into creating it yourself or choosing a designer. Like the last presentation, here's my contact information. If you have any questions, you can contact me at my email, aeharvey@mix.wvu.edu. You can message me on my LinkedIn, or you can go to my portfolio website and actually leave me a note in the contact me section. So thank you all so much for checking this presentation out, and I hope you guys have a good day.